Hello, everybody. Welcome to Half-Ass Podcast. It's your boy Corn. Over here to my right, we have Mark Plaid. Mark Plaid, say what's up to the people.
What's up, people? We are doing a video today, and that is the day that you are watching it.
And everybody, over here to my right, say what's up to my boy Smith.
Your bottom right, I guess. I don't know.
Oh yeah, bottom. Yeah, bottom.
There shouldn't be much confusion. There's only 3 people on the screen, but
I don't know how it views on the actual YouTube. I don't really watch it.
Smith is in at the bottom of my screen, and Corn is to my left.
Yeah, so I don't know. It might flip around when you post it, but I don't recall seeing anything different about the layout. You frozen, Corn?
Oh yeah, he's got to be.
That was fast.
Yikes. Okay, so my roommate was going to hook me up with Ethernet connection, but I got in the office and there wasn't close enough outlet. All right.
There goes my fucking internet. So awesome.
Okay. Hopefully, I won't be worse with my connection.
But we are here tonight because we are here to discuss the movie Homefront, starring Jason Statham, James Franco, Kate Bosworth. Am I leaving anybody out?
Winona Ryder.
Oh, Winona Ryder. Yeah. Who should I start with first? Smith, what did you think of this movie?
Well, I feel like we should mention it was also the screenplay was written by Sylvester Stallone. So that's, based on a book. But, it seems like because it was originally written for him to play the role, the lead role of the protagonist, but he gave it away to, what's his name again?
Jason Statham?
Yeah. Well, he was also in Snatch, wasn't he?
Snatch. I think so.
Snatch. Yeah, he's one of the guys. He did a really good job. He was probably the best part of that movie, just him acting. The only problem I have with him is I didn't know. Look, I know he's English or Australian or whatever, but he was the first I want to say 20 minutes of the movie. I didn't realize until he was talking to that sheriff that he was putting on the accent or he didn't try to change it. So there's an American cop who spent.
You noticed that too.
Yeah, it was weird because I was like, "Whoa, he's doing that." Okay, is he like? Is he born in England and then came to be an American cop?
Gator in the diner. And then he's like, when he's like, getting down to business with Gator. I'm like, wait a minute, he's using his accent because I thought at one point I'm like, oh wow, he's doing an American accent, and then gosh, I wish I knew better if he was British or Australian.
I'm pretty sure he's British. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But it was a good movie for what it was. The action scenes, I'm sure you guys will probably have stuff to say about that too, especially the big one before the girl gets kidnapped. That it was a good action scene, but it was kind of muddy, I didn't really. It wasn't it's not like we're watching a John Wick movie. I understand that, but it could have been a little bit cleaner.
Yeah. I think can I caveat off of just the fight scenes in general? It's just, you could tell it. Again, it's not like a John Wick-esque, fighting style movie or anything like that. But especially for that time, what was it, 2012, right? That it came out?
2013.
2013. For that time, I think it has some pretty good action in it. And the fight scenes. I like the part where Gator's his meth lab fucking blows up. That shit was hilarious. That was cool. And then he turns back around and has that dramatic moment of taking the girl and shooting his sister. That was shocking too. But I'll throw it over to you, Mark. What did you think of this movie?
All right. Well, I feel obligated to a full disclosure, because so far, we have not, really discussed politics very, very deeply on this show. I don't really know a lot about your guys' point of view. Blabbermouth maybe picked up on mine, but I mean, to say the very least, I have a lot of political views and interests and things like that. And admittedly, and I try to avoid this, but admittedly, I full disclosure, like going into this knowing that Sylvester Stallone wrote the screenplay. I'd like to feel like I'm enlightened, but that kind of tainted my viewing of it because I kind of got sort of a Rambo First Blood Part 2. Like, no, maybe, no, not First Blood Part 2. First Blood. I got a First Blood kind of feeling out of it. And so I wanted to try to not see like what may have been certain messages in it. But I did see, like, aside from the politics aside and what I think about certain political views, I did sort of get this feeling of First Blood from it in that, the Statham's character was, like this DEA agent, and, he like fought the good fight and then, went out and, kind of retired. I mean, because like, I know he wasn't like completely off the force, right? With Small Town, like he was still at least considered DEA to an extent. And I think he did that too for his wife or whatever. So, yeah. And then, of course, I got this feeling of like there was like this rugged individualist sort of thing, especially when, and we see it so often in action movies where it shows where it comes down to like, where, like he had the police right there a lot. And no, he had to take off and take care of it himself. He had to be, the guy with the biggest balls, and stuff. But, and I understand how that can work for, action films for us to get more of a satisfactory thing where the guy takes care of himself. But in a way that kind of took me out of the film too. So, but directing wise, cinematography I thought was really good. I just thought like the visuals in there were really good. a lot of really good helicopter shots, things like that. The action I kind of felt like was a little, I don't know. I think I kind of, I don't know. There was like too much in the dark or something. I wanted to go back and watch it, but I wasn't able to. So yeah. So this was, I would just say it was entertaining on the level of what I used to call hangover movies, where I'd be on like if I would be hungover when I was in my 20s in college, and if I was out all night on Saturday and working on Hangover on the couch on Sunday, that kind of movie is what I like. It's like, it doesn't give a lot of thought provoking, but it gives me something to look at, engage me, so I can think about something other than wanting to puke. So, but yeah, but that doesn't make it a bad movie. It makes it enjoyable or watchable to me, because if it was unwatchable, I'd have to turn the channel.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I'm gonna say this, man. Like, well, actually, first of all, I don't know. All right, you might hate me for this. I've never seen Rambo First Blood, so I had no idea what you were talking about.
Time ago. I can't blame you. I mean, I don't. You don't mind me revealing your age, do you?
Oh no, I don't care. I don't care. Yeah.
Okay, you're 27, right?
Yeah. Well, 28 now.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Rambo came out in like fucking 1980. 82. Yeah. It was a long ass time ago. That was what?
Yeah.
Fucking almost 40 years ago. So
yeah.
So it's an old movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, growing up, we always had, we still had those movies where it's like, oh my God, you've never seen that. It's just like, growing up, when I was a kid growing up, it was like, oh my God, you've never seen Karate Kid, or, you've never seen, what's another movie? Like a stereotypical like movie that everyone's fucking seen. Like that was,
I guess, any Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah. Or Back in the Future. Like,
that's a good one.
I don't remember watching that movie, but
one of the reasons why that film may be in the public mind still is because that movie Rambo came out. Oh gosh, how long has it been the last Rambo. It was what, part 4 or 5. It was not too long ago. It certainly wasn't almost 40 years ago. And I thought I read somewhere he may want to make another one, which I thought it was supposed to be the last one. I think it was called John Rambo. You know what I'm talking about?
I think, yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
It didn't do very well. So if you forgot it, not a surprise.
Yeah, and you know, and another thing that makes sense to me too, just on the spectrum of this movie was good for what it was, I'm not just talking about just like they didn't have any other big name stars in, but I do believe it's just the budget, like just like and to carry off of what you did say, Mark, is that it's a simple story, but I feel like the way they did it kind of made you look at it in an unsimple way, if that makes sense. Like at the end of the day, it is just that simple of a story. But I think what they tried to get you to capture throughout the movie was to keep you thinking. But it wasn't like a deep thinking movie, if that makes sense. You know?
Well, I think what they really did well was the characters in the film. Where I felt they were a little engaging, because like one thing I did like was the psychologist in the school. I was afraid they might try to straw man her and make her look like, the whiny, psychologist that doesn't know what the real world is like, and she wasn't like that. She wasn't like something that they were easily set up and just to knock down. Is just like, she's one of those people. She doesn't know about the real world and what it's like to get a gun in your face. She wasn't that, And then the girl, who I think they really did, the young girl, his daughter, I forgot her name, character or the actress. She was kind of like old beyond her age, like. She just was really, and that says something too about her acting, where, in a lot of ways, something like, is she a, I don't know, 10-year-old or however old she was going to be, or is she a 28-year-old Jodie Foster? It was hard to tell, but she was wise beyond her age, and she played it very well. And and that, the kind of the way that she was written too, I think was done well. And I think that kind of gives more depth to the movie, than sort of the action that I harped on about the rugged individualism aspect of it.
Yeah, I'll start off with Jason Statham. All right, so Jason Statham, to me, he should be amongst those names of like, the Steven Seagals, the Chuck Norrises, the Jet Lis, the Jackie Chans, the what's the other guy? Scott Adkins, the Michael Jai Whites or whatever. Like he should be amongst those names, because he's always been like an action hero. At least throughout my childhood, he was, from Transporter to I believe he went to like another mainstream series and was like a side character. And then he went to the Fast and Furious series, which again, I don't blame you for not watching after Fast 5, because that entire franchise is shit now. But yeah, once they start like flying cars in space, I'm like, all right, fam, like I'm out. Like, yeah, I'm not looking forward to the next one. But anyways, like Jason Statham is that dude. He's that action hero. You know what I mean? And then you have James Franco. This, to me, I felt like this was James Franco's, like, yes, he's had other breakout, roles and stuff like that, but I always looked at James Franco as like that funny guy, like that, just like. You see James Franco on the screen, it's all right. We're in for a laugh. I think this was like a few years off of Pineapple Express, and yes, he did Spider-Man, but again, he wasn't really like, that wasn't really a dramatic role, you know what I mean? But this movie, I felt like if you had anyone else play this character, it wouldn't have come off the way it did. Like, you wouldn't be like, all right, like this movie, I felt like James Franco really truly played like your average. He looked like a believable asshole drug dealer. Like that's what he looked like, and he played it so well. You know what I mean? And then you go to Kate Bosworth. I remember seeing her in that movie she did years before that with James Marsden. But anyways, it's lost on me. But Yeah, I mean, she's had some great roles. She's a great actress. She played the crackhead sister. I know she wasn't a crackhead in the movie, but I just like calling her a crackhead, but because she was acting like one. Um, Whatever fucking drug she was on. Was it heroin? What was it? Heroin?
That was
She was
bad.
on
Meth.
meth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was dipping in his shit then. All right, so yeah. I mean, look, I I think one of the easiest roles to play is probably a drug addict, but again, I don't know. But she played that role well. I like what she did in the end, where she pretty much was one of the good guys in the end, right? She tried rescuing the little girl, and then of course James Franco, he shot, her brother shoots her, and that's another thing that I felt like goes unnoticed in this movie. It's like I felt like people didn't really walk away from this movie really thinking like how, like, it just adds to him being more of a bad guy is the fact that he shoots his sister and looks at her and walks away still with the little girl. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, I know it wasn't like he's not like massacre nuts, like he's going around shooting like 24 people. But look, man, you shoot your own sister in the stomach and you walk away and kidnap a little girl. I mean, hey, to me, I mean, he played that kind of bad guy well. I felt like the only person who could probably ever play a role like that would probably be like Woody Harrelson or someone. You know what I mean? Someone of that nature. So to me, it was great. And then you go to the little girl, like you said, like when you mentioned about the little girl, she was. When the movie first started, I thought to myself, I was like, okay, here we go. Your average, little girl whose dad is like an assassin or whatever the fuck, is a badass, and then she's a badass and blah 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 whatever. No, she had moments in this movie to where she was still a little girl, like to where she still had those little girl instincts where she was screaming, to Winona Ryder, about like don't let me go, like stuff like that, where it's like, if it was like two guys her age grabbing onto her, she kicked their ass. But against a grown-ass woman, even though she is a crackhead, like, you can't take her because she's a grown-ass woman. And I like that. I like the fact that it still brought the little girl isms to her, so she's still, at the end of the day, she could still be a badass, but she's still, however the fuck old she was, 10, 11, 12, whatever. I like that. I like that aspect. Because that's realism.
So how did you hear about this film?
Ooh, initially, like way back, previews, just previews. Just like right in my alley. Like, have you guys ever seen that movie Out of Furnace with Christian Bale and Casey Affleck
No,
I don't think so.
and Woody? Oh, this gives me those kind of, like, I was into like those kind of gritty, dark. This movie is a watered down version of the kind of movies that I was really into. I mean, I still am into, but the kind of movies like thriller, like slash action thriller kind of vibe to it. So this was like right up my alley.
So you heard about this when it came out? Did you see it in theaters?
No. I saw it when it hit digital.
Okay, because I was, I wasn't too young. I was like 15 in 2013, and I have never heard of this movie until now.
Really?
But I know that in box offices it says that 22 million was the budget. They made 50 million. But I don't remember. No one's ever mentioned this film to me ever. I wonder if it's I mean, it might be maybe some people are,
It's a lot of movies that I look back on, just even in the past few years, that I went to the movies to go see, and I thought they were really big, and I wondered why it wasn't sold out. And then years later, it's been like 3, 4, 5 years later, and you mention the movie and nobody knows what the fuck it is, and I'm like, they had previews everywhere for this, and you don't remember this? You don't even remember this even existed? Like, it's like this movie. I remember I mentioned the movie Black Mass to someone the other day. The movie that came out like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, starring Johnny Depp, and yeah, nobody even remembers the fuck that movie came out.
I don't.
I'm like, you don't remember Black Mass, where like Johnny Depp had like this? It was like a big deal that Johnny Depp played like a very old mafia boss, and nobody fucking remembered. I'm like, that was a good ass movie. Like, what the fuck?
Wow.
Dude,
Man,
It's
maybe
crazy.
maybe
Yeah, it's crazy.
you think maybe it's because things are drowning under superhero movies. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know because yeah, it's really hard for a movie to stick out that's new, that isn't a superhero movie or Star Wars or something like that. I mean, and
Yeah.
here I'm a fan of those, but the way they've dominated cinema, it can be overwhelming in a way too, because especially since there are so many movies. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are there too many movies now? It seems like
Oh,
there's
way
more, but
too many.
yeah,
I mean, maybe not this year in general in 2020, but like
right,
once we
right.
go back to whatever the fuck normal will be, and people can go to movies like movies again. Yeah, I think it's going to be a mass influctuation, especially now more than ever. It's going to be a mass influctuation of movies. Like every single month, these movie theaters are going to be packed. Um, that's a fact because people are gonna want that experience again. First of all,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's gonna be. I'm telling you guys, it's gonna be movie after movie after movie after movie after movie, and it's gonna be way too many to keep up with. Way too many to keep up with.
And most of them are going to end up like this film. A
Yeah.
decent film, but no one remembers it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's parallels for this film like every year since, I don't know, the 90s, where the movie comes out and everyone's like, you see it and then that's it. Next year, it's the next thing. Especially
Yeah.
like with these animated films they pump out, like 2 a year, or at least they were. The kid kind, like the Emoji Movie and all that. No one remembers those. There's tons of films you wouldn't even believe came out, but
I forgot Angry Birds was even a thing until I saw like Angry Birds had like a sequel movie, and I was like,
yeah.
what the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the one reason why I remember the Emoji Movie is how shocked I was to find out that Patrick Stewart played the poop emoji. That might lead me to watching it just to see
Oh my
what the
god.
fuck, But because I'm just like, what made it? I mean, because it's like, does Patrick Stewart? What brought him to that movie? Because I mean, how desperate could he be? It doesn't seem like the kind of actor that takes a gig solely for the money. Like when you look at like Nicolas Cage, love him or hate him, the guy's bad with his money, and that's why you see him in everything.
Yeah. Look, this movie, yes, was good for what it was. But I thought it was actually better a little bit more. I think it was better than what people give it credit for. And I don't mean, like, because I feel like if this movie came out maybe 2 years earlier than it did, it really would have given James Franco a lot more credit. It would have made more money because it would have been the height of James Franco's career, and it would have been the height of the last ending height of Jason Statham's career. Because I don't see Jason Statham being in some super big ass role anymore. He's getting up there in age. James Franco is now in his 40s. Like, I don't know. This movie could have changed a lot if it would have came out in, let's say, 2010, 2011. But
Yeah, it's
again, I like the movie. I liked it a lot.
yeah. I guess we are getting to the point where actors that had a big prominence, like say in action films, like Jason Statham. I'm sure he's had many different roles, but he's famous for action. But I mean, I remember you mentioned like Steven Seagal and all these actors that I saw in the '80s. By the late '90s, it was kind of like, okay, these guys are getting old. Who's going to be the next wave? And so that kind of reminded me of that. Like, it's kind of like, well, where's that going to go? I mean, if it's going to be a thing at all, right? Because the most action we get is superhero movies. But then again, action movies may do well in the Chinese market, which, right, is a big thing. And one of the reasons why certain films like comedies don't do very well at all overseas, just because of the cultural aspects of that, where comedies don't make the same money they did, say, back in the 80s and the 90s, especially now that the international audience is more important to the Hollywood industry. So yeah, but I could see action films in, like, say, China, where that seems to be the most looked at market, could continue to go on, that aren't just superhero films.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'd have to agree at this point because, yeah.
Yeah, so to ask the question, I wonder who's next for that kind of film, because I think they could do well. I mean, right now, like, yeah, I mean, they still make a lot of money from the Fast and Furious franchise, right? I mean, personally, I think, wow, I can't believe, like, they went way past what I thought it would have done. And like right now, personally, I watch them ironically. It's like, people like don't like Vin Diesel. I do have a soft spot in my heart for Vin Diesel, mostly because he's a D&D player. But
Vin Diesel to me is better than The Rock. Do not get, as long as we leave The Rock out of the conversation of being an actor, it's good. But please, I don't want to know your opinion whether you think The Rock is a good or bad actor. I don't think he's an actor at all. I think he's horrible. I think he's the worst actor of all time. But Vin Diesel is a better actor than The Rock. So Vin Diesel is in fact a good actor.
Right. Admittedly, though, I like Vin Diesel's movies more so ironically. I mean, I had a roommate once where we would use the word diesel as a verb. One day I accidentally told my roommate to diesel me the cookie package that was on a coffee table, and he picked it up and threw it in my face as hard as he could. And I'm like, well, I asked you to diesel it. So just, like we would watch Triple X together and be like, whoa, that scene was so badass. They had to show it 4 fucking times. Wow. But it was ironic.
Let me get these chats. Real quick. Shout out to Reverend's content. Thanks for supporting the page. Says Corn. I'm guessing that's what he's in. He said, "You're gonna be somebody one day. Don't forget about me when you big it. I'm dead." Thanks for Reverend's content. Shout out. Shout out to Jaren. Jaren says, "Hey," and shout out to. By the way, hey, Jaren. Shout out to Sit Yoy. Sit Yoy. Is that? I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name, but Sit Yoy says, would you guys ever change anything about this movie? Smith, I'll throw it to you, bro.
Yeah, I would definitely change something about I know you guys talked about how well Franco did this, but when I was watching the end of that, I expected a redemption arc from him. Like, so these biker gangs show up, they're trying to kill this dude. He just cares about the distribution of his meth. So, why not just turn around and start gunning for them instead? But he ended up dying. Well, he didn't die, right? But he ended up not going that direction.
Yeah, and okay. Yeah, I think they did kind of set it up to where he could have, because he did seem to have more depth of character enough to do that, at least to the beginning. I mean, he ended up, but yeah, I can see where that could go that way. Yeah,
that's interesting. Mark, what about you? Would you ever change anything about this movie?
Well, this may be nitpicky, but I think I would have gotten a different viewing of it had Sylvester Stallone done it under a pen name. So yeah, because I kept reading Rambo too much into it, and I mean, and only too much just because it was kind of there at all. It wasn't like I held on to that throughout the whole film. But yeah, that's just the way it is. I mean, the man's name makes money and whatnot, sure. But yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I just think that though, I guess to Smith's point that I did think they were kind of teetering in a lot of parts between depth of for the villains, depth of character for the villains, and sort of, to use this term again, straw man, sort of, like like, oh yeah, and mind you, this is a guy who was literally chased by a redneck once when he jumped the curb with his um, pickup truck and forced me into a bunch of bushes because he was literally trying to kill me. So it would be easy to be like, yeah, rah, 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 rednecks are a bunch of idiots, and that was just one time I was trying to kill. I could come up with be killed, but I could come up with more examples. I mean, I was a punk rocker, and back in the 80s, that was really fucking dangerous. Yeah, but yeah, so I thought that yeah, the rednecks were just almost a little too dimensional in a lot of ways, in some ways. However, I think what's his name, the guy's father, the bully kid's father, he was interesting in that he wasn't a total badass. He wasn't, like, yeah,
The
he
dude
was
who
kind
like
of
Trevor from Grand Theft Auto.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, he was a little different, but yeah, I think they could have, I don't know. They had it. That's what I think, they had it to do a little bit better with them, and they didn't. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Look, dang, I wasn't expecting that. Okay, so I really wasn't expecting this question. All right, well, I mean, if I had to change anything about the movie, I would say this. All right, so we don't really know whether it's a thriller or an action movie, right? Like it's like right between that line, right?
I mean, it's labeled as a thriller. I don't.
Because it had Jason Statham in it,
Yeah.
and I guess they kind of tried to force all of the action into it rather than kind of like leading up to it. But I mean, I guess if you didn't really put his hands on the kid's dad, then I guess none of this really happened. I don't know, but again, I'll take the cop out answer, like well, not really a cop out answer, but I'll take like the cop out excuse if I had to change something. So I'll take your quote that you said, which was, this is probably nitpicking. So that's what I'm gonna say. I'm probably nitpicking, but I would probably take out at least half of the action in this movie. And I love the action in this movie. Like, I love the fact that we had all the action in the movie and everything. But again, this is probably nitpicking, but less action, it probably would have been a better movie to sell. Because if you go back, I mean, even in the previews, it's, starts out as, okay, all right, we're getting a feel for what the story's about. And then bam, boom, pow. Now we're in the action. Then you're trying to sell your movie, and it's just Jason Statham fighting people off. And this is not what this movie really is. You know what I mean?
Well,
So,
it's funny.
again,
I didn't know it was billed as a thriller. And but honestly, this is coming off a recent viewing of Green Room, because I know Green Room was a thriller horror, but man, they did the thriller in that. They really did that.
Yeah.
And I did not see it as much. I mean, now that it's mentioned that it was billed as a thriller, I didn't see as much of that in Homefront. But mind you, I'm recently coming off a Green Room. And that really, that had I don't know, I think that had a lot of the thriller and horror in it, to the point where I think the thriller did dominate over the horror aspects.
Yeah. Oh man, like again, like that again. That's if I had to change something about this movie. I would probably, I'd probably say that. But I like this movie, man. I liked it. So if you guys had to pick a part that you didn't like of this movie, or I guess just ups and downs from this movie, Smith, I'll start with you.
The only thing, well, I mean, we've talked about what's bad and what's good already, but that one scene where he goes to confront the meth head's brother, the father of the fat kid, the second time about the cat, they didn't really do much with that. He just walks up, he's like, "Where's my cat?" Like, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then he walks away. Like, okay, I don't know. And then nothing even let out back. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna fucking give me my cat or whatever." And then he just drops it from there, like that whole thing. I don't know if he finds out immediately after. Yeah, he doesn't even find out that it was Franco who messed with him until the next day in the movie, right? Because that night the brother's talking to Franco, and then it just disappears. Like, oh, I guess he's not gonna show up and kick this dude's ass for his cat. Like,
yep. Mark, what about you?
Well, I think because they like, I think I don't know if we were talking about it on camera about how Franco we've come, or you came to know him, and I agree with you on that. Like more of a comedy actor, things like that, and I think he did really well in this. And because he's definitely been like kind of typecast that way. Well, he hangs out with the Rogan kind of crowd, or there's like that group of comedic actors that, I mean, they work really well. But I kind of wish that there was more. I don't know, more folk. Maybe something more between Gator and some interaction between Gator and Statham, in that Gator being Franco. But I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I just think there's just a lot of things about this movie where they might have done better to go a little bit further with the thriller aspect and just certain things like, like I said, with some of the redneck things where there were so many things where they could have easily straw man things where they didn't, like the bully kid, for example, too, where Statham's daughter asked him to come to the party, and the kid like was convincingly no longer a bully. Like, he was having a good time at the party, and I believed it. It didn't take me out of the movie, it didn't take me out of the movie for him to have, he sort of, and they gave him like a little like tragic reason why he was a bully, just in that one little scene alone where he was listening to his parents fight, so just certain things, like maybe if they push it a little bit further, with those two aspects.
A bad point for me for this movie would definitely be the length of it. It's like you're starting to get into the thriller part, and then they all of a sudden just end it on like action scenes, and that's it. So that's the bad point for me. It would definitely be that. And another bad point would be the dialogue. I won't say the dialogue between the bully's dad and Jason Statham, but just the fact that they kind of left that part out. Like, they kind of left that super open-ended, where it's like, I mean, of course, in the end, his wife already turned into the good guy, or a good guy. So, I guess they tried to make him a good guy too in the end. It's really weird. That part was really weird. But again, I try to just make it simple, but yeah. Kind of took me out of it a little bit. So now I'm going to go around, and if you guys could give a grade for this movie, for Homefront, what would you give it? And if you guys want to make any backup statements on it, or any lasting statements on it as to why you give it that grade, you guys can go ahead and do so. Mark, I'm going to start out with you.
Okay. Well, I always grade high, but in this one, I would give it a B. Because because I mean, if it was just passable, I would give it a C, but I think it's more than that. I think the acting was good in the cinematography, but I do think some of the the writing aspects could have been stronger, and things like that. And as far as for what it is, thriller, action, regardless of how much that balance is, I could. I think I could get more out of movies in that genre than I did from this one, so that's why it's not in like B plus or higher for me. I don't know. And the same with the actors too. It's like Statham. I don't know. I really like him, and I think he's always been in action roles that somehow bring a little bit like more of a twist, because this seemed kind of run of the mill for me. But as far as run of the mill movies goes, there's definitely like passable or worse movies than this.
How do you like your thrillers, by the way? Do you like your thrillers super like dark and gritty, to where it's like really realism into it, or do you like yours to have like a little bit of like a little watered down feel, so it's not too real? You know what I mean? It doesn't give you too real of a feel to it.
I do like dark movies as much as I like having fun. I really like it when movies go dark and gritty. And yeah, and I do expect that out of thrillers more. I think that's where I find the divide between a thriller and say action. Like even in the case of Green Room, where the horror aspects I just saw in the gore so much. Not to say that, I mean, horror films are dark by definition, but the darkness of thrillers, yeah, is a different thing. And so, yeah, when they can go to the point where, maybe people will be like, oh man, I just want to enjoy a movie. I just wanted to be happy. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can like, I want to shake it up sometimes. It's like, I like a happy ending too, but if you want to go dark and everything, you could do it in a convincing way that doesn't insult my intelligence, then hell yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, I like my movies dark and gritty. Of course, one of the first gritty movies my mom had me watch as a kid was this movie called The Good Son, which was Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood, and that movie was pretty fucked up. But yeah, I mean, but then again, I like dark and gritty, but I also don't like movies that are just dark and gritty just for the sake of being dark and gritty, like Rob Zombie movies. Like they're an acquired taste. I like them, but I don't consider them as like these are the blueprint for thrillers or horror, because it's just like it's just he just does gore just to do gore and all this other shit, which is cool, but it's good. It's good for what it is. Like when you know what you're going into, when you don't expect a horror movie or a thriller going into any of those kind of movies. So I've seen it on both ends of the spectrum where it's like, okay, it's done really well, then it's just like this is done just to be done. But Smith, what would you grade this movie?
I would grade this movie at a C plus, but a high C plus, so like a 79% for back in school. Almost a B, right? Just didn't make it. Because they had a great budget. They did it all looks really nice, except for maybe that final action scene. It was a little dark, but understandably so. I don't know how they would work lighting into that, or better lighting anyways. Let's see. They didn't do anything like they had a big budget, they had great actors, and they could have done a lot more with it. Like in terms of action, thriller movies, whatever you want to call it. This is just another one on the stack of them that people are probably going to forget about in 30 years.
If they haven't already.
Maybe completely. But yeah, no, great film though. When I watch it again, I would definitely watch it maybe in like 6 months just to revisit it. But I don't think it was, it's just above average. That's what I would say.
That makes sense. I like that. I like the way you put that. I'm going to go with a solid B. But the reason I'll go with a solid B is because one, I was entertained the entire movie. There weren't any parts where I'm like, oh, come on, let's get this rolling. Oh, come on. Like there's some parts where I'm like, the dialogue wasn't really needed, but I wasn't like sitting there like, all right, man, what time is this movie? Like, it's like they got us into the movie, although they kind of like, we were so into the movie that once it was over, you're like, oh, that's it. Oh, okay. But it wasn't like a sour taste in my mouth after the movie. I got to give it a solid B. Solid B. Just based on the fact that it was a good story told. They somewhat left a little more than they should have opened for a sequel. Because it's been I don't know how many years and there's no word of a sequel. But then again, it was a movie that they wrapped up the story. They wrapped up the initial story and left you a little cliffhanger in the end, sort of. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I got to give it a B because although it's not the best action thriller or whatever, but it's not the worst. And honestly, I'd say it's one of the better ones that were made, especially with the budget that they had for it. I felt like good for the budget. It was a damn good movie. What they did with it.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it may not be doing well, and this is probably a really goofy way to think of it, because cable television really isn't much of a thing. Like, I mean, the only people that I know that like have cable are like my age and older. It just seems to not be. So it's like I think this movie might do better, like if it was like on TBS in the afternoon, like I said during my hangover movie time. Because that's when I watch them, like from noon to 3 or whatever or 5. And like, oh look, it's on USA Network, if that's even still a thing. I'll watch it. What the fuck? It's better than golf.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, guys. You guys got anything else to say about Homefront?
I can't think of it.
All right, guys. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was our movie review of Homefront. If you guys, whether you guys agree with us, whether you guys like some of our points or whatever, let us know in the comments. Make sure while you guys are still in here, make sure you guys hit that like and hit that subscribe. This is Smith. This is Mark. And this is me. And we are OUT.